This is the Note Closer Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today, and even more excited to have a buddy who's doing some amazing things in Louisiana, particularly in the biggest area there, Baton Rouge, home to the LSU Tigers, right?
Yeah.
We got our buddy Cecil Rose. He's also a fellow podcaster, host of the Dive into Real Estate Investing for Newbies podcast. I was honored to be a guest on his show a few months ago. And so we're just excited to have you because, man, you were rocking and rolling. So, Cecil, share a little bit with our audience about kind of where you got started and what you're really focused on these days now with the market.
Well, Scott, man, I appreciate it. Appreciate you letting me be on your podcast. Like you mentioned, you were on my podcast and we had a blast. And man, what you're doing is just, is very effective. You're helping a lot of people, especially with notes. And actually, I got started off trying to learn notes. This was about 8 years ago, and I failed miserably in it. And you know how you try to find some type of niche. And I was coming out of college. I had graduated from college, but I started learning about real estate in college, like everybody. You read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You read Dale Carnegie and all these books, and you try to just try to navigate your way through. And I stumbled on pre-foreclosures and short sales, and I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know whether I should get my real estate license or should I. And I met some people in real estate, but I never really had a coach. So to be honest with you, man, I was failing miserably with trying to reach people, contact people. And I eventually signed up for a event in Atlanta, Georgia. I paid some money I stayed with some relatives out there. I got a little education and I got back to Baton Rouge and, I started doing short sales from there. And then from there, I got my real estate license because I found out, with me doing short sales, having my license will probably be beneficial. So that's kind of how I got started. And now I'm still doing short sales. Like you said, I am in the red boot, as we call it, the Big Easy. I've been in New Orleans. I actually grew up in New Orleans, and now I'm in Baton Rouge, the home of the national, of course, champions, LSU. And man, we got some good eating out here too. So hopefully we'll be out here one day.
Amen to that. I was out spoken at an event earlier on in New Orleans. I think I had a bowl of gumbo with every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because I just love it so much. So yeah, right. Good food. But let's talk about that because let's talk about the market right now. You got started in short sales like I did actually. You got to have a passion for it because that's a beating on a daily basis for the most part. But are you still seeing a lot of those in Louisiana? You start seeing that in Baton Rouge and New Orleans or around the Bayou State?
Yeah, I was reading, actually, I try to keep up statistically and read through Black Knight, with the forbearances, they says, 4.3 million. And with delinquencies, Louisiana is actually in second, and Mississippi maybe in first, and then you got New York and New Jersey. But I've never stopped marketing since COVID-19 because even though with the moratorium, they extended it, there are people who were 5-6 months behind before even COVID-19. So I said, look, I'm not going to stop. Most investors are probably stopping. And if that's all they did was pre-foreclosure, which I just don't just do short sales. But yeah, I'm still marketing, and I picked up a few deals today. Actually, man, somebody called me out the blue and said, hey, I don't know what to do. And I was able to get on the phone. And to be honest with you, we'll talk later more about what I want to do with those deals or what I'm trying to do eventually with them. No. But yeah, to answer your question.
Still a lot out there. I mean, yeah, Louisiana was hit really hard with everything going on with COVID, and there's a lot of I was just looking at banking ratios. One of the things I like to track is I would pull a list from Bauer Financial, and it ranks banks on a 0 to 5 star basis, 5 being great, 0 being basically out of business. And when you pull up the list of Louisiana banks, there's a 1-star bank right off the bat. It's the Bank of Louisiana is struggling. You probably dealt with a few short sales from the Bank of Louisiana, huh?
They they got portfolios, and that's a good place to actually have a good relationship with those bankers, because they may have some portfolios of defaulted non-performing notes. But they struggling, man. We've a lot of people are struggling, especially big businesses, restaurants are struggling, so yeah.
So let's talk about, because I think stuff is still moving though. You still got people that are buying and selling homes, right? With Baton Rouge and New Orleans, you've got your finger in both pies. Is that correct for the most part? And doing stuff in both markets.
Right.
Okay. Which market do you think is it's probably come out of this, actually, as we're kind of still through it, but it's kind of been better positioned to get through all the craziness? Is, say, Baton Rouge is a little bit stronger market, or New Orleans is a stronger market?
Right now, I think Baton Rouge is a little stronger. I think they said we up to 2.4% as far as in our sales. So we don't really have enough inventory right now. I just finished the rehab. It took me about 3 months. First day I put it on the market, I had multiple contracts.
Nice.
And people are they're looking. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Let's ring in some more. Get some more ringing there a little bit.
Right, but single families, as far as our median price out here is around $212,000, but the house I sold was around $150,000. If you're in that price range, that's all day. It'll sell all day. Single family, 3-bedroom, 2 full baths. So yeah, it's been consistent. That's why I got more investors that are calling me looking for deals. And by me not just being a realtor, but also an investor, I know they're looking for off the market deals, because everything that's on the MLS, of course, is overpriced almost. So everybody want retail for them. So,
well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think people probably have seen a lot of price reductions too on the MLS over the last 90 days. But let's dive into that a little bit though. Price reductions is one thing. With you still doing short sales and stuff like that, what was the average time frame for you to get a short sale done pre-COVID? 6 months, 9 months, 60 days? I know it's gotten streamlined than a lot more than it was 8-9 years ago.
The last one, I did one, and I was surprised because most of my short sales I can get done less than 3 months. And I had one that took me about 6 months. It was because the buyer, one of the buyers kept backing out, and they didn't have the funding. They wanted things to be repaired, but that was the only reason why I think that one took so long. But for my short sales, they've been taking at least about 60 days if I can hurry up before they push through and get the approval letter. The short sales that I have on the market as far as retail, it's been a little difficult because I got a house in New Orleans, and I know, I'm telling real estate agents, I'm telling investors, hey, please go look at this house, because I'm getting multiple offers, sight unseen. I'm letting y'all know up front in the MLS how much repairs this thing needs, and the foundation to electrical, to plumbing, the term. And they said, I don't care. I want to send this offer. And then when they go and look at it, oh no, we're going to rescind it. So, it's there, but to me, it's putting more time, effort, because they want me to submit their offers to the lender. But in between the inspection period, they pulling out. So I'm like, you got the lender processing this short sale to get an approval, but you hadn't done your due diligence. So it's a waste of time for me. And that's what I've been noticing lately on a lot of my retail short sales that I have on the market,
They see the repairs and they run the other way, versus realizing that they can work in their favor. Right. Now, let's talk a little about some of the price points with short sales, because I think the days of getting stuff at 30, 40, 50 cents of value
Right.
is probably over and been over for a while.
Yeah.
Where are you kind of seeing in the negotiations? You seeing 10, 15, 20%? I know I think you had a really good deal too. You mentioned before you picked up like 50 at 33 cents on the dollar, but it needed a lot of
Yeah,
work.
I got that one like 50 cents on the dollar. That one didn't really need as much work, but I've been I've been picking up a lot of pretty houses. And you know, once you get those from VA to FHA appraisals, I mean, you know, even if you go in 65 to 70%, I mean, it's coming in at least 80%. So it's really, you can't do anything about it, but it's a listing. It's not really a deal where an investor would probably want to do. But to get into that, I think, you know, me and you were talking about with the notes and doing subject tools. I think those are good deals depending on how far those homeowners are behind. And I mean, I'm seeing homeowners 10, 15,000 behind, which is not that bad. So if they're willing and the homes are already vacant, if you're willing to do like a subject to and all that on it, I mean, those are good rental deals, you know, without taking over the having it all in your name for the mortgage. So.
Yeah, well, that's the beautiful thing. You could put the properties in a trust and then keep it as a subject to deal, provided the PITI and expenses are is less than market rent. And that's kind of where our next question will leave with you there. But then knowing, you know, especially right now, the banks are willing to keep those loans perform in some sort of fashion, whether it's forbearance agreements or deferments, and they really don't care. I mean, yes, people will talk about the due on the sale clause, and if you do it, take over subject to, you're technically buying the asset with existing financing. But as long as the bank's getting paid, they don't care.
They don't care. Yeah.
You know, they don't have time, especially right now. They take any type of payment to make things. So that's where I think we're going to see a lot of opportunity here is that forbearance, loan modifications, and then, okay, you're out of the house. Well, at least work with me to get a loan mod done to make it more desirable so I can get an investor. We can get somebody taking care of that payment for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever, until they get refinanced out. And then go from there for the most part they can. But yeah, I mean, at 80 cents on the dollar, if you got to come in cash, that's a tough play as an investor. But if you can pick up the notes at a discount, hey, that's a phenomenal thing. You and I need to talk a little bit more about the different banks you're seeing on your short sales, and let me work my magic on this end. You go find a retail buyer, and let me split profit somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean?
Right. That's a good idea. You know, even when we what you were talking about, we previously were talking about the Airbnb. Now that particular market in New Orleans it's a profitable market because we got Mardi Gras, we got the French Quarters, Bourbon Street, and but to be honest with you, they are more strict now. If you hadn't been grandfathered in, they're making the home or the owners or sellers of those properties, they got to be occupied now. So they have to occupy either some side or one side or however it is, mixed use or whatever. So that has eliminated a lot of people doing short-term rentals. Now in East Baton Rouge, we don't have that because, you know, it's more like football season out here. We do have some Mardi Gras in Baton Rouge, but other than that, it's not as strict in New Orleans. So a lot of people who are trying to do Airbnb, you really can't do it like they were doing a few years ago.
Yeah, that's a big concern for a lot of the big college towns, and that's what I was going to ask you. Is especially in Baton Rouge, if the season is canceled, that's going to hurt a lot of people, especially with the short-term rentals are renting out from Friday through Sundays.
Right.
You know, every weekend, and every weekend they could, and then also leading into basketball season, stuff like that. We've had some of that up in South Bend, Indiana, and places like that too, where you got big programs that, you know, the city will increase by 100 to 200,000 in a weekend.
Right.
Now it may not be. I mean, let's face it. Old Coach O is not very happy. His team was getting sick all a few weeks ago, weren't they?
No, it's you know, I was watching though. This just the quick veer off. They was showing how they was gonna have the steam or whatever or the disinfected running. I don't know how they're gonna do that. And don't get me wrong, Tiger Stadium is real big where you can, you know, you can separate people, but still, man, it's just with the numbers spiking, people are still just very cautious on, you know, how this thing gonna play out. So.
Now, speaking of rents, let's kind of bring it back into there. If you and New Orleans and Baton Rouge, different demographics, different kind of makeup a lot, obviously because of vacation stuff. So if you're an investor and you put your investor hat and you're looking at a property, is we'll just say normal single family home. Is there a rent rate number that when you see it on a property as a market rent rate, you kind of cringe like, ooh, that's got to be a rough area?
Yeah.
You know, like it, you know, what's that number in either city? What's that number kind of look like?
You know, the average rent rate I would like to go for is about $1,200 a month. If
okay.
you in East Baton Rouge, they have places where $500 or $600, and that particular like South Baton Rouge, some of the areas, I wouldn't probably mess with those areas because you know what type of rents. It's gonna be hard trying to get, you know what I'm saying, keeping those properties up. And yep. I actually had a wholesale deal where a guy, he just older gentleman, he had 11 properties, and you know, $500 and $600 was probably his max rent, but all of them was rent flowing, you know, and some of my investors, they just wouldn't touch that area. Right. But I had another investor that's just an area that he loves, you know. So I guess it's for different investors, that's what they want. But yeah, I got to get something a little higher than that. Now, when it comes to rent, you probably would get more money in New Orleans than what you get in the East Road. Yeah. So.
But it's the same thing in New Orleans. Is the same kind of price point. You see something 500, 600. It's a rougher area for the most part. Or do you see?
Yeah. You do get that, but with the regentrification and everything that's going on out there, I mean, closer to New Orleans, closer to Canal Street, I mean, you probably can get $1,000 easy in that area. You know, I mean, shotgun homes, not even like the homes in East Baton Rouge. So.
Yeah, that's good. That's good information because that's one of the big things when we're seeing things online. Investors, you know, we're getting these lists and I always say, hey, run the rent rates like in Columbus, Ohio, great city. Now they're like college town, but if it's in $500 rent, ooh, that's a 2-gun alley. You know what I mean? Right, you better go and pack in some meat in a bulletproof vest in some cases. And we got that. Every city's got that. We even got that here in Austin, Texas. Is knowing if there are opportunities or not opportunities. And I know a guy that you know, he had like 60 rentals in Gary, Indiana, which was a rough area. Gary is one of the roughest in the country. And he made it work until the markets really crashed, and then the banks called the loans due and went from there. But coming back to New Orleans and Baton Rouge and stuff like that, it's a little bit of a longer foreclosure process because it's not your traditional judicial, non-judicial foreclosure, right? So what kind of time frame does it take to foreclose in the two cities?
You're looking at from either 60 to 180 days for in Louisiana. So it's not like Texas, of course, where y'all boom, 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 y'all go quick. Which really would be good because so many people have been dragging their feet. And like I said, you know, I've been speaking to people who were 6-7 months behind before COVID. And of course, they milking the forbearances. Where my bank reached out to me, and I'm like, well, you're still not working. You still don't have a job. You're upside down. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm saying, look at the numbers. I mean, are you really going to be able to catch up? So, but that's people, they drag it out to the last minute. And of course they'll call you. It's the normal thing. They'll call you a month ahead and say, hey, I've tried all this. Can you help me get this stopped? So.
Yeah. Well, you know, your heart goes out to all the entertainers, the business owners, the service industry people that have been affected. That's a different story versus somebody who's just, you know, you give an inch, you give them an inch and they take 2 miles, not just a mile, but 2 miles, 2 handfuls, right?
Right.
And drag it out. So 6 months foreclosure. Any tricky things? I mean, obviously you probably got some historical properties you have to be careful about with what you do, but anything else unique in New Orleans or Baton Rouge that investors really need to keep an eye out for when they're looking at real estate or even notes?
You know, multifamilies is big in New Orleans. I got a lot of investors that, you know, that's what they look for. It's not as big in East Baton Rouge because you start getting more into the rural areas when you move out of New Orleans. And you know, mobile home parks is a big thing in East Baton Rouge because we got Livingston Parish that's close, and then we got Lafayette going. I mean, people love mobile home parks for some reason, and especially if they traditional where you don't have to, everything is already in. You don't have to, you know, build anything or put anything in. Everything is coded already. So yeah, a lot of investors are looking for that. But in multifamilies and in New Orleans, that's That's what most investors are looking for. But that's rare. I mean, to me, that's been really difficult to find multifamilies. Even close to LSU, a lot of investors like to buy in that area, 100+ units, and but they so hard to find. Of course, you just everybody wants them. So
yeah, everybody and their dog wants 100 units or more, and I'm like, well, that's great. It doesn't mean the banks are going to sell. The banks still know that's
right.
what's wrong. But the thing is, I think if you keep track of, especially people that bought property in the last 12 months, that may be over encumbered the property or paid too much, because we all know apartments are the most expensive asset out there. And we flash back to what we saw 12 years ago or 10 years ago. We saw a lot of apartments that were bought at the peak of the market. The borrowers raised capital thinking they could regentrify the asset, increase rent rates immediately, and then go get a bank loan and cash out their investors in 36 months. Well, we know that's not going to happen. The banks aren't going to be refinancing out. You're going to have a capital call when the values drop, and then now that they got to bring another 20-25% of cash to the table, and the investors aren't going to pony that up with everything. So there's going to be some opportunity for that. You just got to keep your ear and nose to the grindstone. I'd be reaching the Bank of Louisiana and see if they got any non-performing apartment loans.
Have you noticed that with a lot of multifamily units, commercial, you being in the note business, that the decline? I mean, the defaulted notes, number of defaulted notes are very high.
Here's the thing: they're still waiting. The banks are still waiting to see where everything's at with their what the government's going to do on the residential side. The commercial note stuff, when you have states and cities putting moratoriums on foreclosures and things like that, stopping on the residential commercial side, it's still waiting and see. I will tell you this: hard money lenders have been ringing my phone off the hook, looking to see if I'd buy their debt, because they're at 75 cents of value supposedly.
Right.
But they're trying to get par. I'm like, I'm not going to pay par for something, a project that's not completed. Right. If I can't foreclose on it for another 6 months, then it doesn't make any sense for me to buy anything right now. That would make sense. Now, I think the opportunity is buying some of the stuff, and then if you can get the borrowers to modify the loan in some sort of fashion that really makes a good yield play for you, ride it out for the next 6-12 months. And if they still can't come to the table, then go the foreclosure route to take the property back if you need to, or at that point maybe they get back to work and go from there. But I think that's the biggest play is on that residential side. Commercial side, I think you're gonna have to be really careful on what you're buying on not so much multifamily, but your strip malls, your restaurants, your retail space. That's all taken in. We're expecting to see a 20% decline on retail space across the country here in the next year and a half.
Right.
So if you can buy something that's going to put a tenant in place, or something that that's where the local investors are going to have the biggest assets, because they're networked, they're going to know people, and they can kind of pivot as they need to. I think you're going to see, and we all know that malls are in trouble and big box stores are in trouble. But if you keep an eye out for that, I think you're going to see conversions, like some of the bigger box stores that are standalone, maybe converted into self-storage facilities. Right. Older Walmarts or grocery stores. Or I love what you said. If it's a weird piece of land, convert it to a mobile home, or even regentrifying a commercial space into a residential space. If you can do that. I've got a buddy that's converting a 60-unit hotel into 40-unit apartment complex.
Wow.
And that, I think, is a brilliant play. I think you're going to see a lot of that everywhere. Right. So keep an eye out any hotels that are in default that can be converted relatively easy. So, wow. But Cecil, you're doing such an amazing job out there. You're kicking butt and taking names. What's the best bit of advice you can tell investors that are listening to this about when they're reaching out to an investor-friendly realtor? What's the things that you like, and what's a couple things that are just your biggest pet peeve with people?
I guess, I don't knock coaches. There's a lot of coaches out there. When I got into real estate, I believe in investing in my education, but I think also you need to invest in the right education, and you also got to be coachable too. So, get a mentor. Don't be cheap. Don't waste a lot of time. There's a lot of information on social media. That's good, but eventually you're going to run into something where you can't figure it out. So I think Scott is a good mentor when it comes to closing notes. And, if you don't know something, get a mentor. So that would be my advice to someone. Just invest in your education, and be willing to learn. you know, and get good at that and not learn so many other things. Learn something, focus on one thing, and then try to, you know, complete the next thing. So
now, how many people have you seen since you started and you focused on the short sale side of the business, try to do a multitude of other things and never find success? There's a lot, right?
man, there's so many people who do that, and they quit. They quit. Yep. And they never really get to a point where, man, it's funny because I have a private investor or a private lender. He loans money, but he has never did a deal before. That's all he do. And we talk about doing deals all the time, and I've done deals, and I say, man, just do a rehab or a flip. He said, man, I guess I'm fearful, you know what I'm saying? So, but he got all these programs. He watched all these seminars, books, and I'm like, well, you good at private lending. You got that down. Why not take the money you have and just do a deal? Years he still has not done a deal yet.
So, I love it. Hey, at least he's pulling the trigger and lending money out.
Right.
Cecil, what's the best way for people? First of all, would you come back on in August for our Note Nation when we focus just on New Orleans? Would you come on and be our agent for talking about New Orleans? Good stuff. We'll have you on about that. But what's the best way for people in Note Nation to reach out to you, to work with you, to reach out, see if you got any deals or help them out as they find notes or other assets in those markets that you can help them with?
You can find me on Instagram at King of Short Sales, Facebook King of Short Sales, LinkedIn King of Short Sales. And of course, gotta mention my podcast, Dive into Real Estate for Newbies. You can contact me through there. So yeah, those are my handles.
Are you just doing short sales in Louisiana or doing them in other states as well?
I'm actually doing them in other states as well also. You know, I'm outsourcing that, just have some people trained up that can do the negotiation. Because that's the biggest thing. People want to negotiate. They don't want to do the paperwork. They just want to, hey, give me the deal. Once it's ready, then we can figure out if it's a good buy or not. So
good stuff. Well, hey, man, we are honored to have the King of Short Sales here, and my buddy Cecil join us today. Cecil, once again, thanks for being on the No Closure Show. Thanks for doing what you're doing, and we'll be in touch very soon on some other stuff. All right, man.
All right, thanks, Scott. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks, man. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the No Closure Show. You learn a lot from Cecil, talking about the two different markets, what to look for. I think, you know, like many markets, we're in a kind of a hurry up and wait aspect of it. God knows that's the short sale business. Hurry up, make the phone call, wait in the bank to make a damn decision, and go from there. So check them out. Like I said, if you're buying something in Baton Rouge or New Orleans, or you need some advice or counsel, reach out to him. Take care of the guy. He does a great job. Got a big heart for working with investors. And take that and pull the trigger, and we'll see you guys all at the top, everybody. Bye.
All right.